I think he's doing a better job of finishing his runs, but I think a lot of it really starts in practice. He's done a better job of creating, positive practice habits, whether it's, just working on the details, whatever it is, in terms of pass protection, in terms of routes, in terms of running the ball. But the biggest difference that I think I saw from the initial part of training camp was just how much he was finishing in practice, sprinting 30, 40 yards after contact. So I could tell he was on a bit of a mission.
Next question is from David Eichholt.
Hey, Ladell, good morning. Appreciate you taking the time. Talking to Kaleb yesterday, it really doesn't surprise me, but the running back room just seems like such a tight unit. We know there's only so many carries to go around, but it seems like, if Kaleb goes out there, has a big game, LaShawn's super happy for him. LaShawn, Kamari, whoever goes out there. How do you as a coach kind of help develop that bond that you guys have in a highly competitive running back room where everybody's just kind of happy that the position itself is succeeding rather than individual accolades?
Well, I always try to start by addressing the elephant in the room. I mean, they're all competing against each other, and they know that. They signed up for it. But I told them, just from personal experience, I've had close friends that have been in the same running back room with me, and sometimes you're the guy that's ahead of them, and sometimes, whether due to injury or whether production, they may be ahead of you. But I've explained to them, make sure that whatever handshake that you guys have, whatever normal ritual you guys have, conversation you guys have, that shouldn't change based on who's where on the depth chart. To me, that's real friendship. If you're cheering on your buddy, no matter where you're on the depth chart. Now, you don't have to like it that a guy's ahead of you or behind you, however that may unfold. But at the end of the day, you guys are still friends off the field. You compete on the field, but you're still friends. And they bought into that, and that's a credit to them. It's not really a credit to me or anything. It's them appreciating one another and respecting the fact that they're all working for the same thing. And if a guy has the hot hand, he has the hot hand, and you just have to tip your cap to him.
Next question is from Scott Docterman.
Well, Dell, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the mid zone runs. They seem to be tighter. The line seems to be able to get to the second level a little bit easier. And they really seem to work for Kaleb in hitting that hole so quickly. Is that something that kind of adapted over time with Tim Lester? Was this something that you had in the playbook before and just didn't use, or why is it working so much better now than maybe it did in the past?
We have made a few, tweaks and adjustments to it from how we ran the zone last year. The mid zone is a little bit different from how we traditionally ran. We ran wide zone last year. So you have your inside zone, you have your mid zone, and you have your wide zone. So what you're talking about specifically is the mid zone, which is like the happy medium to the both of them. And so from the moment that Coach Lester got here, that was kind of a staple of his offense and a staple of kind of the Shanahan system. So we emphasized it from spring ball, and it wasn't pretty at first, but we kept repping it, and the guys are getting a better understanding of the tracks. The offensive linemen are getting a better understanding of their attack points, and I think you're starting to see those things mesh and gel together, the work that's been put in.
Next question is from Chad Leistico.
Hey, good morning, Ladell. Shanahan system is known for its screen passes. We haven't seen a ton of those yet. I wanted to ask if you thought we might see more of those as the weeks go on, as you get more comfortable with the offense, and also who are kind of your best pass catchers, I guess, in that running backs room right now that you can rely on in that type of, per screens.
The screen game is something that we have tried to work on, especially through spring and through training camp. Unfortunately, we haven't called a ton of them, to your point, in the first couple of games. And some of that is just due to, the opponent and what they're giving us, different scenario situations. But we do want to obviously throw screens in the game, try to keep a defense off balance. How much? That all depends on the game and the situation. But when you ask about specific pass catchers, I think they all have decent hands. Some are more adept than others. I think KJ has pretty good hands. He's a guy that goes back there and is accustomed to fielding kickoff returns and catching passes out the backfield. Le'Shawn has done that as well. Who else? Max has pretty good hands. They all have decent hands, but like to your point, there are some that are more adept at catching than others.
Our next question is from Corey Breda.
Morning, Ladell. Good to see you.
Morning.
I know you're not calling plays, but for the average fan, they look at the game on Saturday and those two red zone trips that ended in field goals, and they say 12 offensive plays, 1 touch for Kaleb. What kind of a relationship do you have with Coach Lester as it relates to, in a situation like that? Do you kind of put a bug in here at his ear, like, hey, I think this is the guy in this situation or in this situation, and I guess just play to play when he calls a run? How much conversation is there between you and him about which back to go with in certain situations?
Obviously I have a great relationship with Coach Lester, but in terms of who's in and who's not in, he'll ask on the headset sometimes, like, which back is in. More often than not, it's been KJ. Usually if he's not in, it's because he needs a breather, or it might be certain situations where he may have not had a ton of reps at a particular play, for whatever various reasons. But a lot of times that communication is on the headset of, which back is in, and if he needs a certain back, he'll ask for a back. He has no problem doing that as well. But a lot of times if KJ's not in, it's usually because he may need a breather. It's still early in the season. These guys are still getting their legs underneath them, the wind up. I mean, it's not easy to take 40, 50 plays a game.
Next question is from Tyler Tashman.
Hi, Ladell. Hope you're doing well. Just wondering, going back to you recruiting Kaleb, what all do you kind of remember from that? I know he was committed elsewhere at first, but just can you kind of take me through that process?
I can. Actually, KJ was, if I remember correctly, I think he was the first kid I ever offered. I remember coming into this job and sitting in the office and sitting down with some of the recruiting department, and there was a list of backs already kind of in the data system. And I just remember sitting down watching a bunch of backs and kind of saying yay or nay to some guys. Let's just say there's 20 names there. I watch all 20, and there's maybe 5 or 6 of those guys that I say, okay, I like these 5 or 6. And KJ was one of those. And then you kind of start watching those and comparing those guys together. And KJ was the first guy that I ever offered. So I was his running style and his high school tape. I was drawn to him immediately. And going back into recruiting, we had many conversations. Just through the process, you get to try to know a kid and figure out what makes him tick. What he likes, what he's thinking, what his expectations are, and what our expectations are, and how I coach. And over time, we developed a little bit of a relationship in terms of coach player. But to your point, he did choose another school at first, and I was one of the first people to say, congratulations. If anything changes, let me know. And sure enough, probably a couple months later, he started reaching back out and said, I don't know how I feel about the decision, and the rest is history. Said, hey, let's get you back on campus, or let's get you on campus for the first time, and see where we go from there.
Next question is from Adam Jacoby.
There we go. Hi, Ladell. Thanks a lot for the time today. Just wanted to ask, this with the new offense, there's also been a little bit of a difference in how the offensive line plays. From the running backs perspective, how much of a change has there been in those guys up front, and has it made the running backs' jobs easier this season so far?
I mean, you're getting into schematics. I don't sit in their room, in terms of exactly what they're being told in terms of coaching. But the biggest difference to me, if I'm just speaking very candidly, they're a year older. They're guys that have had a lot of playing experience. Some of them were young when they started playing. When I first got here, guys like Connor Colby and Mason, those were young players. And Logan Jones just switched from defense. So these guys are in their second, third year of playing at their position. So I think what you're really seeing is an older, more veteran group starting to gel and come into their own, which is what I think you're seeing with some of the backs too, especially when you think about KJ. I mean, this is his third year. So hopefully as guys get older and they develop and they have some starts underneath their belt, you'd like to see them progress. And I think that's what you're seeing.
John Steppe.
Hey, Ladell, good to see you. Wanted to ask you about KJ with last season, kind of when things weren't necessarily going his way. How did you see, or kind of what did you notice in terms of his patience and, not jumping in the portal, but kind of trusting that things would work out here?
Well, KJ was hurt early in the season. I think he was hurt Iowa State week. So second week of the season, he hurt his ankle and was out for 4 weeks. That was the biggest hurdle that he encountered. And then when he came back, he still didn't feel quite himself. He didn't really trust the ankle a whole lot, and he had to work on some of his bad habits in terms of like pass protection and just running nature. He had to work through all those kinks. So it was good for him. And we had very candid conversations. Hey, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to do. Just trust the process. And to his credit, he did. And I'm thinking back to to the conversation we had a little bit earlier when I talked about their relationship. LeSean had stepped in and he was doing a great job, and those guys are friends off the field. So he was encouraging LeSean, and LeSean was encouraging him and trying to keep him in his spirit. So I think everything comes together. And to KJ's credit, he's really just done the work, and he came back hungry, healthy, and now you're witnessing what you're witnessing.
Next question is from Elliot Clough.
Morning, Ladell. Appreciate the time.
Morning.
I wanted to ask about recruiting a little bit. I know you don't have a running back commit in the 25 class. Some offers out there, some kids committed elsewhere and stuff like that. But I guess I was just curious, is it sort of a situation where you've got a luxury of a bevy of running backs right now that have either seen time or that you expect to see time? Or is it a situation where you're just kind of waiting things out given the increase in scholarships? Like, I guess I'm just curious about how things are going there.
I'm actually not in any hurry, to be honest with you. We had a couple early offers, and those guys, a couple guys committed elsewhere, which is no big deal. But I'm just really waiting to see who pops out there senior year. There's so much talent out there. I mean, there's all across the country. To me, I'm not in any hurry because we have a decent group of guys in the building already. So I don't want to rush or take any or shoot out offers just because I feel pressed. That's not the situation I'm in. So I'm kind of sitting back and letting things unfold and seeing how some of these guys play their senior year, and we'll make a decision. Guys like, Kamari, TJ, they were late additions. They weren't, they didn't commit before their senior year.
Chad Leistico.
Hey, Ladell, wanted to follow up on Terrell Washington Jr. and Brevin Doll, who both I know are, at least I understand, that are doing some receiver, some running back. I guess where are they at in terms of like percentage-wise receiver, percentage-wise running back, and how do you see them, I guess, in the plans in the future?
Brevin is more so in my room completely at this point. He's pretty much tailback at this point.
Okay.
TJ is a different story. TJ is doing a lot of reps at receiver. He's in the mix over there, and TJ could very easily come in my room and play too. I mean, he's very talented. So TJ's doing more receiver right now. I don't know if that's going to be long-term next year, who knows, but he's got a skill set where he can transition between both rooms right now because he's got a little bit more experience. He knows the offense. So he can play receiver or running back. But to answer your question directly, he is more in the receiver room right now than he is in my room, and Brevin is in the tailback.
Tyler.
Yeah, just curious about Jazz and kind of what you've seen from him leading up to the season. And obviously he hasn't really played the first couple games, but just kind of where he stands in the room and kind of how you evaluate him right now.
Jazz is doing really good, doing really well right now. He had a bit of an injury early in camp that took him out for a couple weeks, so that kind of hurt his progression. And then he's been back, and obviously when guys first come back from an injury, they're never quite themselves. They kind of got to work through that a little bit. But the Jazz that I'm seeing now, especially last week and this week, and I really think about this week in practice, to me, it's starting to look like the old Jazz. He still looks like he has the bounce in his step, the pep in his step, the energy, all the things you love about Jazz, they're there. So he's very much in the mix. He's back practicing well. So we'll let the chips fall where they may there, but he's available and ready to go.
Scott Docterman.
I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to Kaleb Johnson, and he's blessed athletically, big physical guy. He's very fast. He's also got kind of that upright running style. How have you kind of coached him to, because he can absorb a lot more hits than if you get your shoulders down. How have you kind of coached him to adapt a little bit more, especially when you're bracing for contact?
You know what? That's an ongoing conversation every day. I mean, from period to period, to drill, because he is so tall. I'm always reminding him, hey, keep your pads down. Sometimes he'll look at me like, Coach, my pads aren't. I'm like, no, you have to remember, you're like 6'1", 6'2". You're not 5'10" or 5'9". You need to run and bend your knees. So that's a constant reminder for him, and something he always works on and always needs to be reminded of, because he's just a tall back. He's got long legs, and sometimes he doesn't realize how high he is at times. So it's a constant reminder, and he's working on it. It's something I have to continue to harp on with him. Get those pads down and continue to hit guys with leverage, because I think when he's running that way and hitting guys with leverage, they bounce off of him.
Corey Breda.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on that, Ladell. And from my perspective, Saturday was the first time that we saw some consistency from him in the second half, playing through contact. And so how much have you seen? I mean, even just keeping those legs churning and using his size, how much have you seen that in practice? And was there a point in time where he started to understand the whole, the challenges associated with getting low at his size and other ways that he can, use that size to play effectively through contact?
Obviously we work on it during practice. So he's definitely putting the work in there, but I think the biggest teacher really is what you just mentioned. It's the game. It's him seeing it for himself and doing it for himself in the game. And I echo what you just said. I think that was one of the few times I've seen him truly run behind his pads, bring his feet, run through contact, break some tackles. I mean, and it's something that he and I talked about in the offseason. That we knew that that's the part of the game he needed to add. And I showed him on tape after the game, like, look, this is what you're capable of. So you should feel confident in that. So hopefully we see more of that going forward, because I think that's who he is. He just has to get more comfortable being that way.
All right, and last question, Ladell, will be from Elliot Clough.
Ladell, to revert back to some of those young guys again, Xavier Williams is a kid that I liked a lot coming out of high school. Obviously, kind of a punishing runner. I think the comp has been LaShawn Daniels. I guess I'm curious as to how things have gone for him. He just looks like he has tree trunks for legs, and yeah, just how are things going for him in his first year?
Xavier's doing great. Xavier, he's a great kid. Smart, physical. He's got good vision, good feet. So I think Xavier's doing a great job, and it's always a learning curve when the guys first get here. They don't know the system, they don't know their left from right. Guys have bad habits. They want to bounce plays when they shouldn't. They want to cut up when they shouldn't. So he was working those kinks out. But as of right now, I think he's rolling. I think he's going to be a good player for us in the future. He has good contact balance. He's got a sturdy build. You mentioned his legs. He's thick legs, thick lowers, good feet. I think he's going to be a good player for us down the road.
All right. Appreciate your time this morning, Ladell.
Thank you.